Okay, so I believe Woohoojin might have coined this concept, but if we just think about your teammates all connected, okay, so this line goes here, this line goes here, this line goes here. It's a very long chain with just individual points, okay? So at this point here, there's 2 end of chain points. So this is end of the chain, okay? You being the end of the chain player means that when rotates happen on defense, everyone kind of shifts over, right? So Lurker's job as an attacker is to either exploit a gap in the chain or to find the end of the chain, which is going to be you in this case. Because if they kill you, they get the entire right side of the map. And that's kind of the logic. I mean, it's been a little bit, kind of. It feels like it's been a while, but it's actually not been that too long since the last one. But for me, I definitely have a bias towards mechanics. You voiced over DMs, maybe it would be good to look a little bit over the game sense decision-making stuff. I think we could definitely take a look at both today and kind of treat it more of like a where are we at, kind of just taking a little bit more of a holistic view at it and then going from there. So taking a look at this Haven game might be a good starting point. It's a close game, 13-10. We're playing the Reyna, which obviously is ideal for mechanics. So let's take a look here.
I was literally just thinking that.
Okay, so let's see. B start, C start. Okay, so starting position is probably going to be one of the biggest things you can get ROI from. Because based on where you start, all your options are dictated off of that. I think we might have touched on it very briefly, and you do a really good job of tuning into the sessions in the dojo. But for those unfamiliar and also more of as a refresher, I'm going to introduce this concept, the 80-20 rule here. Do you remember anything about this rule at all for defense?
Well, I do know it kind of, when I read it, it reminded me of the general 80-20 rule, which is like 20% of the decision is going to make up 80% of the result or something like that.
Right. So basically that is how I like to frame defense. So the 80-20 rule basically states that you play somewhere in the middle of the map, playing fast rotate 80% of the time. So if I do fast rotate, there's obviously nuance to add to this, but as a general base, you play fast rotate 80% of the time, and then you play like extremity / anchor. I'll just put anchor for this 20% of the time. So in this example here, when I see you on C site, my first thought is you are playing extremity, which is on the 20%. But you could argue that you could play for info on the extremity and then fast rotate if they aren't there, which you can kind of get a little bit of both. If you're playing an agent like Yoru, like you have here, or if you're playing an agent like Neon, you're able to contest the extremity, so in this case A or C site, and then fast rotate because you have the TP, or you can pull out your ability to move super quickly. As an agent like Reyna, if you start C and they go A, your rotate's probably going to take like roughly 15 seconds. We could actually time it, but most of the time you won't actually get onto the A site before the bomb is down, and you're going to rotate into spawn. Like let's just say you make it to here, there's going to be smokes here, they're probably going to be on site already, and your teammates are already going to be dead, so you can't actually influence that site hold. So the only actually fast rotate you can do from C is to get onto B site, which is still pretty good. You're able to play for the C hold and the B hold if you start C, but that only accounts for 2 out of 3 of the bomb sites. Whereas if you start on B, you get to play for ideally 100% of the site holds. The caveat to this is if they throw a fake. So if you over rotate from B to A, so let's just say you're Tejo right now, you over rotate from B to A because they make A pressure. There's some enemies here, and then they end up just going C after. Now you're forced to play a C retake. So I like to think about macro kind of like rock, paper, scissors. If they're fast rushing, you play fast rotate, hard counter. If they're faking, then you anchor, which is this 20% here. And if they're defaulting, you kind of just contest space to fight into them, which is kind of more of a neutral thing that I don't include in this 80-20. But most of the time, enemy teams will rush, which means most of the time we should be fast rotating. So that's kind of how I think about that framework. Before I move on, does all of that make sense so far? Do you have any questions?
There were a lot of little tidbits that you mentioned
yes.
that I would like to write down, but maybe I'll just revisit that in the VOD.
Sure.
So in this instance, when no one was on C, so that's why I go on C, like what should I do?
Yeah, that's a great question. Logically speaking, filling in the gap here makes a ton of sense. The problem is, there's a few, but in short, the answer I would tell most people is to just play B anyways and follow your original thesis in terms of starting position or whatever you want to play, regardless of if there is a gap, because it isn't our job to fill in the gap, especially if you're playing duelist. So what you'll notice is they probably won't go C, because most people don't go C on pistol unless they do a C split, which will probably force us into a retake. Or you're playing the site hold alone, which is also another downside of filling in the gap. You'll almost always be alone. So let's just say they do come C, or they do come into a C split. This Teo is probably not going to rotate quick enough. And then you have 3 A players, which means if you decide to play for the site hold, you're going to get run over. And if you don't play for the site hold, you're going to have to play for the retake, which means we should have probably started somewhere else anyways, because we would have been playing retake anyways. Does that make sense?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so that's kind of the TLDR on starting positions. Not much of a TLDR, but I do like the aggro push. So there's a couple things here. Generally, you don't want to do a full push until info is spotted somewhere. So if you look at the minimap really quickly, there's been 4 seconds. We don't see anything C, we don't see anything window, and we don't see anything A. As a duelist player, it's good to fast flank and fast rotate. But to make the decision more consistent, you would do it if there is what I like to call sign of life. So if I'm playing B right now, I wouldn't rotate until there's the first sign of life. Like I would stay looking out window until there's A noise or there's C noise. In this case here, if I'm playing C, like as you are now, I probably would just hold the C line until info is spotted on A, or until I've seen util or heard util thrown from them. You make your rotates based on a reaction. Like they do something, then you react. That's kind of the name of the game on defense. Yeah. Unless you're like immediately being proactive to fight space, which is what they're doing on A. But hopefully I'm not confusing you too much. Basically, if you're playing and they haven't made any noise yet, you typically just hold your position.
Okay.
In which case we do end up pushing up, and we guessed correctly because they aren't here. But you can imagine if they showed 2 seconds later and they're on C, you'd probably get destroyed, just because we're kind of stuck in the corridor here.
It's interesting because I think like a recent game I was thinking in my head, maybe it's smart to go C on pistol, because I think I just trust my aim a little bit more with the smaller guns, and I don't trust their aim, so I'm like, okay, maybe my odds are a little better.
Right.
So I don't know, but it's interesting that you say that's actually not likely.
It's more so about the distance, I think. Like if you go C long as an attacker, I never paused. You go C long as an attacker, like this is a really long range fight, which also means it's going to be a long range fight for defenders. But you kind of have to close this gap, which is going to take a while. So when people have worse guns, they tend to try to close the gap from garage instead, so that when you exit this choke, you'll just be naturally closer.
Okay.
So that's kind of the thought process. It definitely depends on your pistol buy. Like if I'm going C long with a classic, I might have found a better fight in garage because of the right clicks. Whereas if I'm going C long with a ghost or a sheriff, it's probably completely reasonable.
Okay.
So that's definitely the thought process. Let's see what ended up happening here. So we push up. Looks like there's a chamber here. We pick some of these angles. Getting the orb. Okay. And wow, there's a lurker. That is insane. Okay, so what did we learn? We learned that there's 2A. There was a chamber here, and then there was a phoenix here. So
as soon as I saw noise, I thought it was safe to take the orb, but I got punished.
Yeah, so this punish here that happened, they're doing a 2-1-1, which basically is a default. Likely it's going to be 3 towards A if this is actually correct. The problem is we're in low elo and no one knows what's going on. So this guy here probably has no concept of a default, and he just saw a gap on the map and went towards C and sat in a corner. Okay, so as you progress the ladder, this play would be considered by the Phoenix terrible, unless it was an active fake. In our elo, it's probably one of those things that's just going to happen. Which means that the whole, pretty much everything that I just said up to this point with the rotates and decision making applies much less because no one knows what's going on. So what does that mean for us as a takeaway? It probably means that we just have to assume most corners have a player in there until you see everyone on the minimap. So minimap awareness is going to help a little bit. Let's go back really quickly. 2 spot on minimap, looks like it's the Fade Omen. And then as we push up here, we see Chamber. Okay, so what does that mean? That means we're looking for Reyna and Phoenix. This is probably the way that you're gonna get around the lack of game sense in the game, I guess, by just keeping track of players here. Which,
okay,
if I was in your shoes here, I would 100% get the orb, or I would probably be knife out flanking right now. Like I would also die to this player. The thing to know from this point on is adapting, right? So going back to the 80-20, if you're to fast rotate or fast flank, because the read was that they were going A because that was first sign of life, and then you get punished for it because either they lurked or you ran into them when you were flanking, like here, and you died to it. It's not that the initial decision was bad. It's that now we have to adapt as the game goes on. So this first round here, I like to think about the first 3 or 4 rounds of the game as gathering info on what they're doing. Like, do they rush? Do they default? Do they lurk? You kind of go from there, and then you adapt as the game goes on. And you bias your default mode towards fast rotating. So this first death, completely within the realms of what we should be doing actually, minus potentially the actual C starting position.
Okay.
So next round here, now that we know that that guy's playing like a rat, we now have to adapt to that. So if we are going to push later in the game, we're gonna have to, you know, be a bit more cautious. Or what I saw Oxy do on Lotus is he flanked on pistol round, died in the first 10 seconds, and then never flanked for the rest of the game. And he would just fast rotate in his spawn instead. So that's something you could do as well. I don't know if that was a map specific thing though, but something to keep in mind too. I imagine if he got away with the flank, he might have done it a bit more. So pushing down round 2, I did notice we didn't buy a gun. Typically you'll buy like a ghost or something, or like a stinger or something like that in round 2 if you didn't save something. But looking at minimap really quickly, it looks like they are 3A. The Phoenix is spotted this time. So if you're going game sense wise, if I was reading that the Phoenix was lurking for whatever reason, I might knife out at this point because the lurker has been spotted. Given we're in low elo, we probably can't make that assumption. So I do like that your gun is still out clearing these corners. And we looks like that. Yeah, so we're going to be in a retake here. And let's take a look at this fight. So the actual flank is good. I do want to quickly talk about why flanking is good, even though it might be a bit redundant. But basically, you box them into one side of the map. We call this containing. So if like a lot of people are spotted on one side of the map, in this case we saw 3 at the start, and you push the other side of the map, you basically process of eliminate and slowly box them into one side or like one area of the map. So let's kind of just run through that exact same scenario again. They start heavy A. Let's just put 3 here. But instead of flanking, we decided to rotate. It could technically be in any of this space here. So it's still unknown, right? But if we were to push it and take the space instead, let me erase. We're now slowly whittling down the box to where they're only going to be in like less, like they can't be here because we're here, right? So they're going to be more on one side. So that's the main benefit of pushing up and flanking. It's not actually the flank itself. It's just that you know for certain that they're going to be on this part of the map. So from a map control perspective, flanking and taking extremity space works really well. I also realize that this is a bit high level, but it's also a fundamental of the game that probably won't be applied super much into your games yet. Like you won't be exploiting it, but it's probably one of those like fundamental concepts that we haven't been able to touch on that influences some of our fights here. So just take it with a grain of salt what I'm saying. Like it's just like if you're learn a sport, for example, like let's say basketball, you know that there's 2 sides and then there's hoops. Like this is pretty much what that is. You don't really have to take advantage of it too much. But I just want you to understand. Let's take a look at this fight really quick. So the premium did look good. Take a look at the actual swing. Okay. It does look good. Yeah, I'd say this is acceptable. Definitely some micros that we could have hit, but I would say acceptable. And let's take a look at the actual blind fight here. Good omen blind by them. Another thing with flanking that actually is a really good thing here in this case is you're creating pressure on the pinch. So like your teammates are making pressure fighting and you're fighting. So now they're stuck on both sides. They have to fight their way out. So now they turn around and fight us, which means that your teammates can stick the bomb and win. So flanking is really good even if you're alone. Typically when you flank and you get spotted, you try to play your life because the longer you're alive, the more like inherent pressure you put in, even if you aren't getting a kill. So regardless, I just wanted to quickly mention that, but you basically won your teammates this round here because they get a free defuse because they're both fighting you. The actual gunfights itself is probably fine. Something that I did notice with our aim sometimes is when we shoot, we kind of like do this like little jitter right there. Tension might be something to look at, but let's keep going for now. So it looks like we are kind of just filling in the gap so far. This, again, is going to be the easiest thing to change to get a bit more value, but let's see here. Looks like they just go A again. Look at the Phoenix. Okay. In this case, the Phoenix still isn't spotted, so it's good that your gun is still out. And that for good reason. This guy's watching us flank like an idiot. I don't know why he's here, but yeah, that's Phoenix. I mean, probably fill player. I'm not really sure what's going on here, but again, we can't really predict too much, so it's really good that your gun is out here and you're looking at your angles. Let's take a look at the actual peak. Okay, so we weren't expecting him necessarily, it looks like, because we're doing like a W key peak. Where we're kind of holding W and D at the same time. It's a good rule of thumb, even if you aren't actually expecting a player there, to just peek all the common angles as you would. Like, so let's say I'm just gun out, I'm flanking C right now, or I'm pushing through C and I'm clearing the rest of the map. I'd just run out, gun out, but then I would actually peek this door angle, or I would peek this angle here, whatever. I'd probably more so peek this corner, really. Like I'm gun out here, and then I peek this angle, then I keep going. And then I run out here, gun out, peek this angle, keep going, peek this angle, or maybe I'd peek this angle. But basically, at least peek the common angle as you're coming around it, instead of like rounding it like this, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah.
It's definitely a discipline thing. The thing that I was told in CS was to clear your corners like it's your religion, and that really stuck with me. So
okay.
We subscribe to that. Good gunfight hygiene though. Like you're shooting and moving, which is good. That guy almost got destroyed. Good flash by him. And looks like this guy's throwing the whole kitchen sink at you. Yep. So clear the corner. Like close right maybe? Okay, so this guy really just left. He's playing the whole game sense game right now. Clearing flank, filling in the gap, not overextending on the fights. Like this guy is more so playing correct Valorant, like if I put it in air quotes, because he's not giving, like he's filling in the gaps and not taking too much risk, right? So if you were to try to play more correct Valorant, kind of like what you were doing when we first started coaching, when you were playing the deadlock, you would like throw your util on defense, like wall when you heard them and then ran away. That's definitely the smarter way to play the game. I don't really advise most people to do that for the reason that I think it is better just to simplify the game and take the gun duels, but I'm trying to explain the thought process of the Phoenix here. So he spots you on flank and then he runs away to go to his teammates to play a trade, which then puts us into a difficult situation. But let's take a look at the actual gunfights here. So we're coming up long here. Crosshair placement definitely looks better, but I will say it's difficult to W key. So when in the customs, we practice the skill of like contacting, which basically is like walking up on angles dry, like you're kind of just shift walking and peeking, stuff like that. The way you properly W key, or like go fast, let's kind of use that term instead. The proper way to go fast when you're scaling in this game is to actually use A and D on the common angles. And then as you're scaling after that, you trace the angle that you're expecting to get fought from as you're holding W and a directional key. So in this case, if I'm coming up long here, I can't just A and D everything, right? It's gonna be unrealistic. So I scale up by holding W and D as I'm making a ton of noise. And I'm holding crosshair gap, hoping that if they swing me, I can react to it. Then when I get to the angle, I'll stop, no longer holding W or D, go for the preaim, swing the common angle, and then proceed as normal. In this case here, I actually have to clear close right. So I'm gonna peek out a little bit and then do the same thing. Peek, peek. And then from here, I'm gonna probably jiggle or whatever, but this is where the A and D stuff comes in. Then peeking sight, boom, boom. And then this is where I'll do the WA again. In this case, I want to clear this corner, so WA trace. And then I get to the corner, I peek out, no more W. And then from here, I can pretty much A and D peek most things. So I'm gonna A and D peek this, A and D peek this, and then A and D peek this. And then now I have to scale again. So this is where I'll incorporate W. And in this case, I'll do W and D to the right with tracing the edge here, like so. And then I'm getting to this common angle here. If there was no smoke, I would stop here, preaim, and then peek. If there was, I would continue scaling until I get to the edge of the smoke on the side of the box, and then probably peek out here. Or if you know for a fact that there's a player here, you would WD the entire time, and then you would stop and then go for a actual A and D peek. I know that's a lot of things at that moment. I just want to introduce the concept to you. We'll train that separately. I do like the aggression though. I like that we're running it down. Again, the main thing that we're seeing here is that we don't get impact because we're playing C and they're going A. Like, I want you to keep that in mind. Our options are limited. Like, the round looks exactly the same every single time, and we don't actually get a favorable fight because we're on the flank and the bomb is already down. So keep that in mind. Starting position is the biggest thing. Got 3 spotted A again. The round is pretty much already over, which is why it is so important for us to play that fast rotate or just have a really good pre-round read. In this case, in this specific game, they've started A every single round, which means our starting position this round actually might not be B, it might be A, because they showed that they're fighting A off rep and we want to get an early fight as a duelist. As a duelist, the way you play site holds is actually by contesting early space and then falling back. Given that you play both Deadlock and Reyna, your decision might be a little bit different here. Now, my advice to you, even with Deadlock, is to just go for the A fight anyways. Deadlock is a little bit broken right now in the sense that the nade recharges, and that nade is really fucking good at contesting early space. So let's just pretend like you wanted to fight A. Instead of just setting up on A and waiting for them to come into you, like boom, sound sensor, and you just sit here on backside. This is probably what, like 99% of like Sentinel players, gold and below, probably just like set up their stuff here and just AFK. If they hit the bomb site, it's gonna go great for you. They're gonna run into the util. No one's gonna break the util. You'll probably get free kills, or at the very least, you'll be able to time your fight off of your util, which is a very big crutch that lower ranked Sentinel players do. For example, if I have a killjoy turret here, all I have to do backside is wait until that turret shoots and then a peek off of it, which makes your life as a defender very easy because your peak timing is outsourced to your turret. The problem with all of that is if I set up and I have like turret here, molly here, everything all on the bomb site, and they just start here looking for fights and then they leave, well, that sucks, right? So generally it's better to try and look for the early duel here, so you can at least get that gunfight just in case if they do leave, you're not kind of just sitting there and not getting any impact. So with Deadlock specifically, if your read was they're going to come A because they've gone A the previous round and you're trying to take control of the game, you just run up here with your nade and just send it. Hopefully you get a kill, hopefully you get 2 kills, but you just want to take that fight. Now you don't have to do it exactly like how I did it, where I naded and ran up on this wall here as cover and then peeked out. That's how I like to do it because when I play Raze, I do the same thing. So in your case, you might prefer to be more comfortable to nading and then kind of peeking out from here. That's also completely acceptable. My point is, I want you to try and fight the early space, regardless of your agent, if your read is that they're going A. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's keep going. So again, they go A. This time we're opting to clear the mid lurk from garage, which makes sense. And we'll end up on A. So there's that mid lurk. Couple things here. You're actually making the correct decision from a macro perspective. So if they show heavy A presence and you rotate off of C, it's your job as the extremity player to clear the lurker. Like from a decision-making perspective, this makes a ton of sense. There's a couple caveats here though. Number one, we're making noise. So whenever you're clearing a lurker, it's a mini game. So as a lurker, you're basically looking for the end of the chain. Are you familiar with the chain concept?
No.
Okay, so let's just revisit the very start of the round and introduce the chain concept here, which is actually very terrible on this one, so we might want to use a different round. Okay, this is better. Okay, so I believe Woohoojin might have coined this concept. I'm not sure, but if we just think about your teammates all connected. Okay, so this line goes here, this line goes here, this line goes here. It's a very long chain with just individual points. Okay, at this point here, there's 2 end of chain points. I'm just gonna label this as point A, point B. Your A player is point A and your point B here. So this is end of the chain, okay? You being the end of the chain player means that when your teammates rotate, it's gonna naturally shift over and you're always gonna try and be the end of the player. Like you're not gonna jump here and try to overlap your teammate here, because then this would force this player to be the end of the chain. Instead, when rotates happen on defense, everyone kind of shifts over, right? So let's kind of just do this logically a little bit. I'm gonna get rid of all this stuff. Okay, so let's say they make A presence really quickly. Your Sage is probably gonna rotate deeper onto bomb site like this. Your Yoru is gonna rotate into A. Your Taeho is then gonna rotate basically where your Yoru was. Your Breach is gonna fill in the gap on where the Taeho was, and then you're gonna pick up where the Taeho is. Wait, that's the Breach. But that's kind of the point. Everyone shifts over one increment, right? To keep the chain together so it's all connected. The Lurker's job as an attacker, just stay with me here. The Lurker's job as an attacker is to either exploit a gap in the chain or to find the end of the chain, which is going to be you in this case. Because if they kill you, they get the entire right side of the map. So if I'm chamber here and we just did that rotate, boom, Sage went here, Yoru went here, Taeho went here, Breach went there, and then you went garage. If I'm chamber and I can find you garage and I know you're the end of the chain player, I kill you, I know immediately I have this entire right side of the map. So I can knife out and go into spawn. I can call all of my teammates back to C. There's basically a huge gap to be filled there. And that's kind of the logic. So typically if you're anchoring, you're going to be an end of chain player. And if you're lurking, your job is to kill the end of the chain player, typically.
Okay.
Now, given that we know that there's that little mini game there, when you rotate, skipping forward 2 rounds, back to the round we were at. When we rotate here, our job, if we're looking for the mid lurker, is to go and kill that guy. Like that's the whole mini game that lurkers and extremity players play. It's not even a 5v5 game anymore, it's a 1v1. I think Wahujin used the analogy of like finding the snitch in like the Quidditch in Harry Potter on Icebox. And basically like whoever wins that 1v1, that whole dynamic kind of wins the map control game. I don't think that dynamic works as well on Haven, but you can kind of use that analogy here. So given that that's the mini game we're playing here, if you're rotating aggressively, which we are, you have to be hyper aware of this lurker and also do it without audio, which is scary and slow. So if you were doing it without audio, then you would have to clear all your angles here, kind of just walking out. Like if you get the kill here, great. If he isn't there, like you still have to go really slow, and it kind of just sucks, right? So the way you kind of get around some of this is by using info util, which we don't have, or by having your teammates kind of push with you. So if we were to go and try to fight this player here, which we don't have anyone on the map to do now, but pretend like your B player was going out and clearing mid with you while you were coming out and clearing garage, you're able to kind of force a pinch, even if you did it silently. So I know I'm kind of getting into high level stuff here, but that's kind of the game we're playing here. Now, if you are going to make noise like this, it's completely acceptable. It just means that the lurker now has to jump on you. So when you're kind of going around and clearing the angles like this, you just have to be really aware of this guy, which we weren't aware of this corner, but this is probably one of the most common lurk positions on this map. It's going to be like if I'm going for this rotate super quickly and I'm trying to find the lurker, I'm probably only going to clear the common ones and kind of just have my gun out to look at other angles, but not actually properly peek it. So in this example here, let's say I'm rotating from garage. I probably will do this one silent. So I walk up, clear this, clear. This is one of the most common lurk positions. This one here and this one here. And then the third one would be like front B somewhere, like in this cubby or here. So as a rotator from C going to A, I'm gonna rotate out of garage, going silent like this, probably clear this. And then honestly, most of the time I just gamble that he's not here. And if he's there, I die. But let's just pretend I'm flanking from this way. I probably would gun out and clear it like this. And then from here, I'd probably knife out because I've cleared a common spot. And then I would only pull out my gun again to fight the lurker on this angle, because sometimes he will sit spawn or this window angle, and then obviously preparing for the A fights. But like that's kind of how I'm thinking about catching this lurker. But if you're rotating front B,
like I didn't even look at I didn't even think about the cubby.
Yeah, the cubby. Yeah.
It was like a second thought.
So yeah, if you're rotating here, you'd be like, okay, cool, this is clear. Then you kind of run up here, and then you do that W scaling tracing thing here until you get to the corner that you actually want to peek. Or you could like trace, and then as you get to the corner, frame peek, and then go from there. And once you clear that guy out, you're gonna have an easier time for the retake. But honestly, this whole game of like trying to catch the lurker and all of that stuff, you can avoid all of it if you just play the 80-20 rotate. Like playing in the central of the map. Like your job isn't even to catch this player anymore. You're just hoping that you win the round by winning the actual A site hold, which is how I play the game. And to be clear, I, number one, don't like playing lurk on attack, and I don't like playing extremity player on defense because of this mini game, because it only influences one kill on the map. Whereas I want to be where the pack is, and most of the time the pack is going to be 3 or 4 players. So that's kind of why I've derived those numbers. And I think over the course of many games, if you play it in that way, where you're not fighting the 1v1 against the lurker, but playing for the site hold against all of the players, you will have more impact over the course of many games. So that's kind of the logic there. Let's keep going though. So we do play B, which is good. Definitely a better adaptation because they haven't gone C yet. And like I said earlier, you are able to fast rotate. So let's see how this plays out. Given that you do have 2 here though, even if you're alone, I'd encourage it. But given that you have 2 here, it might make sense for you to guys like to double hold window or something like that. Which you do end up peeking out, which is good. The actual crosshair placement on the peak could be a little bit better. So when you peek out here, you probably want to bias it towards left side window, but also head level. But let's keep going here.
Joke's over.
Okay, so there's the Phoenix ult. They're continuing to go A. This would be a great round for us to fast rotate, which it looks like you're doing it. Knife out just for a little bit more speed. Now, because obviously we're in our spawn here, so you have a bit more safety. But this should be a good site hold for us. We make it in time to get the fights. Let's see the actual outcome. Wow, they're actually not even hitting. Like they're just taking kills. But so far, this is going really well. Like you can already see the night and day difference on the impact when we're starting C versus when we're playing B. And then we died to the B lurk. So that is actually what will happen when you over rotate. I don't know if he's actually smart enough to identify, but if this was a higher level game and he saw you getting kills on the mini map, let's just pretend like you were Cypher, because typically Cyphers play C. And he sees you getting kills on A, he's like, oh, that's the C player. Let me go and speed up my lurk. So that guy, if this was immortal, he might pull out his knife and walk up front B and just like go for the hard commit on the flank because he knew you were the C player, right? You were the end of the chain player. Now, I don't think he's going to be that smart because we're in bronze, but you try to get into the mindset here. So again, main thing I want you to see here is the fact that you actually got kills before the bomb was planted, and you actually got fights before the round was like the outcome of the round was over, right? And that's the power of playing fast rotate. I really want you to embody that because that's the whole point of the 80-20. You just play here, and you just get so much value. So it looks like we're playing majority C this game. It's definitely an easy change. They are coming into a C split again. We just have to figure out how to isolate these fights. Oh wow, actually committed to B. Okay, so Aryor got some info C long. Normally that's us. That should be the player that gets info C long, but I really did think it was a split. Not here, it's coming. I think. So there's a player C shooting and there's a player garage. I don't know what's going on. You did hear the reload on the right, so you move your crosshair over. I'll say the initial crosshair placement is acceptable. Let's take a look at the actual gunfight. Okay, so this is where we're aiming too much, probably. Notice how your second bullet is actually following this player dramatically. We shoot the first bullet there, and then your second bullet is there. Some people do get kills like that. I've definitely gotten kills like that before, where I'm trying to control my second bullet on the burst. To me, I think it's a bit unrealistic. Like, I think for most people, it's going to be better to assume that your first burst is just like a isolated entity. So let's say like the player is still strafing left, you burst here. You don't actually control the bursts like sideways, you just burst here and then you strafe again and then reset and go for another attempt. So basically what we're seeing right now is actually a lot of active aiming in fights that might not actually need it. But after the second burst, this is where we should then reset our crosshair and then go for another burst. So let's see. If we do that. We are controlling that second and third bullet again, instead of trusting our first hit confirmation. So you can see the second and third bullet on the second burst is miles away from our first shot, which if you're spray controlling is kind of a different story. So for tapping and burst, you kind of just rely on like whatever the gun does after. You don't really like aim too much. But if you are spray controlling, it's a different story. Like let's say like this guy was strafing to the left, you're trying to, you know, adjust for that. You would obviously move your crosshair with the spray. But with the burst, it's much less common to do so. So that's kind of what I would advise against doing at this point in time. I think it's probably a bad habit. Maybe in the very, very advanced level, you can get away with shit like this, but it's really inconsistent to actually aim your second bullet. So burst, just let the gun do the work on the burst and rely on your initial hit confirmation and your target, like your crosshair and target confirmation on your click to win that fight. And if it's a miss, then you just reset again by strafing and then trying to go for another target confirmation shot. But you do get the kill, which is obviously ideal. I'd probably grab the heal there, but that's okay.
Yeah, sometimes I get the wrong one. That's my bad.
Yeah. Okay, so coming out mid here, obviously these fights are pretty scary. So this would be a good time for you to use your blind. Just high blind and come out because we don't have the time to slice the pie one by one, right? So this would be a really good time for us just to blind because it helps us clear a lot of angles at once. Or at least it de-risks it. Trying to figure out what's going on though. It sounds like they're all playing sight. You might want to check the cubby on the left. I don't know what that guy is doing. So we've been seeing that guy lurk all game. So really good kill. Crosshair placement on the adjustment was really good. Let's see. The actual angle snap. It does take a while. So that's like 2 swipes there. It looks like a little bit. But good gun hygiene for sure. Moving and shooting. And we should just win that. Okay. So definitely good fight conversion there. Ooh, we're actually starting A. This is really good. Playing these early fights is a bit nuanced, but so we're just taking the fight here. Okay, so this is a common angle. So if he were to swing us, it's honestly a really hard fight to win. Generally, when you take the A fight, I'll just show, you tend to take most of your fights off barrier by going wide to an off angle and not playing the common angle. So if this is the common angle here, or if this is the common angle here, most Reynas, when they take the fight, would probably go this wide. Now, this is obviously a bit more scary because if they flash or even if you don't get the kill and you get jiggled out, you're a bit further away from cover and you won't be able to fall back. So that's kind of the caveat here. If I'm playing Jet, I will still go this wide, but then you can just tuck and use the smoke here. As a Reyna, if you take this fight here and tuck, you might be able to flash and go for the rekill, or the reswing, which is probably what I would advise here, but it is a bit higher risk. So if you're kind of risk averse and you don't want to try that at the start, you could try to go on this angle at least. But generally, if you hold a common angle, you don't want to hold it standing still. So given that this is a common angle, I might back up and I might AD it instead. If you're kind of risk averse, but you could also do that here and just AD. Now it is a common angle and you might just like, they might have good pre-aim for you, but because you're ADing, you're hoping that they miss and then that gives you enough time to strafe and get your shot in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But that's how you might want to take this fight instead of walking up here, just because of the flashes. But let's see, they do reflash. Let me follow the young breach here. Okay, so it's good movement. Definitely good movement. Okay, definitely a nice try. I would say the actual like fights look fine. I want to look at the timing. So going on this refight here, I guess we don't know that. Oh no, we do know. So this is the blind. You killed the Phoenix ult. The player we killed here was the Reyna. So when you tuck back into cover, you should assume another swing. This is where you might want to tuck and use another flash. Or you try and play a different angle. So notice how this kill happened on this angle here. Just like how you reposition on the A bomb site, you kind of don't want to take the same angle here because they're going to be ready for that. You might take like an angle slightly to the right, like slightly off center. So that's important here. So you kind of just swung back into it. So visually what that might look like is, boom, you get this fight and then you tuck here and you take this fight and then you slowly kind of piece it out until you flash and then you can go wide again. It's hard to like reclaim space unless you use util or you have like a really good timing with a good peak. So typically you take your fight, you tuck, you take another fight here, and then you kind of just like tuck back in until you use your flash. That doesn't mean that you can't like tuck and then reswing. That's kind of where you start going for juggle pre-fires. So you're trying to catch them as they're chasing you, basically. I don't know if that made any sense.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely throwing a lot at you. Given that I am throwing a lot at you and it was just defense, I think it might just be better to focus on defense for this week specifically, starting in different positions, and then of course the mechanical piece on the pre-aiming first. So for recall purposes, I know we covered a lot on defense. What kind of stood out to you? And I want you to try and piece it into your own words, and I'll try and fill in the details.
Okay, so like my main takeaways, I think, don't start, or like maybe don't focus too much on being the fill starting position. And then as we discussed with the 80-20, maybe better to start in the middle, gather some information from the first couple of rounds and see if there's a pattern of where we end up rotating, and we can kind of make our decisions from there. Also, I need to really practice looking at the mini-map. I'm gonna be honest, I don't look at it all too often. Well, first of all, because I don't know what I'm looking for. It really helped for you to break down, like to look at the cones, and it's hard for me to time it right so that I catch like when the enemy is there. So not sure how to fix that, but yeah, something to keep in mind. During our session today, you mentioned when I have like the leer out and I'm rotating, a good time to look at it and try to figure out, or like use it to figure out where I want to peek, or dedicate where I want. Wait, I don't remember how you phrased it.
Yeah, like pick the angle, I guess, pre-aim it. Yeah.
Pick the angle, yeah.
Yeah. Steady peeking is another way to think of it.
Yeah, and more playing off of my teammates, or like using them as information too. But I think that comes with the mini-map awareness, which I am completely oblivious to.
It's not easy, I'm gonna be honest. I thankfully had the skill translated from when I played League of Legends. So like League of Legends was like my first competitive game that I was grinding in middle school. And in that game, if you don't look at the mini-map, you just die. So that feedback isn't as intentional in this game, and mini-map awareness is typically seen as a secondary skill compared to the shooting, which it is. But yeah, it's definitely a skill. Some cues that I like to use to look at the mini-map, which I can't really show here that well, but if a kill feed happens on the top right hand of my screen, my eyes instinctively dart to the left instead of the right, and then I just look at what the kill happened on. Well, I guess I'm looking at this, but where the kill was on the left side of the mini-map. So like kill feed happens here, I don't look at the right to see who died or whatever. I just look here and then I get that info from the mini-map. So that's one timing to look at the mini-map. The other timing to look at the mini-map is in checkpoints. So when the bomb is down, that's one. Like if you're on attack, you look at the mini-map. You could also just look at the mini-map when you're reloading. So when your gun's not out, or when you're using util. I almost always use my flash off of what I see on the mini-map anyways, so it kind of goes hand in hand. Even if this sounds kind of weird to say, but even if I'm on attack and I'm flashing A long, my eyes are actually on the mini-map here. So I'm trying to like, you see that little red dot on the mini-map? That's like, I'm looking at the mini-map to figure out where that flash is landing. So I know exactly what angles it's covering. So if I flash here, it's not going to get this bricks line here. So if I wanted to fight that bricks line, I might actually move my flash here, right? Like that's all that stuff I'm thinking about when I look at the mini-map with just the flash. So there's a lot you can get from the mini-map. There's a ton, you know, it's just like quick glance. It's not an easy skill to develop by any means, but it is definitely one of the more important ones.
I wonder, since there is so much like that you can gain from it, maybe that's like overwhelming me, so I don't look at it at all. If we just like pick one thing for me to focus on when I look at the minimap, like what do you think would be the most beneficial?
That's
to just
great question.
On this week or something.
I think the biggest thing is going to be where your teammates are, and their vision cones. Like if you can figure out where your teammates are and their vision cones, playing off of them will come after that. But as long as you can kind of see where they are, it just gives you an idea of like what to expect when you rotate in. So that is a good actionable. I like that. Let's kind of...
I'll try my best. I wonder if it would also help me to do the caps lock, to have it show it like in the middle of my screen, and then I don't have to worry about readjusting my vision when I'm looking back from the minimap.
I see. I could see that. I've never.
You mentioned the other
Yeah,
player
the rank
did
1
that,
player.
It's kind of weird, but I'm like, maybe that would be helpful. I don't know.
I do see, like, let's say you're coming up here. I mean, I don't use the caps lock, but I wonder if that's what he does. Like, you can just like let it go. I hit M with my thumb, but that's really far.
Oh.
So
Yeah, I didn't know that it was M also. I just accidentally hit it once and I was like, oh, it's caps lock. Okay.
yeah, maybe caps lock actually makes more sense. You can be here, caps lock real quick, and then, I mean, I see the logic. Maybe that's why they have it there. It's like really quick. Like, I'm coming up here, I check minimap real quick. Then you never have to look top right. I mean, top left. I mean, you might be onto something. I would never do this because I don't have the muscle memory for that. Like, I haven't trained that, but, and
Well,
I
at
just
the
have the
moment, I
other.
don't have the muscle memory for my eyes to look that way, so it's. Yeah, I guess it's just like pick one.
Yeah,
pick one
yeah.
Poison.
Both are good, I think, as long as you pick up the habit at some point, look at minimap. At least with this one, it's very clear on when you're looking at minimap. So, you know, you can see it a bit easier on review. The downside is that it just takes your mouse off of the, like you can't shoot. So that is the downside, but I guess if you're looking at minimap anyways, you're not expecting to shoot. So yeah, I'm not sure, but I'd say give it a go. I mean, I'm not opposed to
I'll
it.
figure it out.
Yeah. But yeah, that is definitely the biggest one if you're doing the minimap stuff. I think this is a good direction. I'm pretty happy with this.
Nice.
Do you have any questions or comments before I let you go?
Well, I just want to say hopefully I'm out of the lost streak trenches because that
Fingers
was
crossed.
really demotivating.
Yeah.
But yesterday felt really good. But I did tell you, and I didn't really tell chat, but I was only doing Guardian for the last like 3 games and we ended up winning, so I was like, okay, is this coincidence or is this like actually something that I should work toward? But I think sticking with our main plan is probably for the better.
Yeah, it also kind of makes sense given what we saw today with how you're like trying to control the burst. You're probably not doing that with the Guardian because like each shot is individual, so you are able to kind of get that hit confirmation a bit more cleanly. But that's probably, I would guess, why the Guardian might be working a bit more. But yeah, the mental when you get on a loss streak is pain. It's definitely pain. And then when you get on a win streak, it's like you're unbeatable. Valorant is very humbling. It's very humbling.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. You gotta somehow detach from the results, but it's easier said than done. That only happened for me in like the last week when I was climbing back to Radiant, and I think that was probably one of the reasons why I was able to get back to Radiant. Like I went on like a 4 wins, 1 loss, and it didn't really change my mental. But I'd go like 1 win, 4 losses, also didn't change my mental. But that only happened in that last week. Like all the weeks before that, it was just like, I hate life. I'd go 4-0 on the day. I'm like, oh yeah, my day is great. And then I go 0-4 and it's like, I don't want to stream tomorrow. you know?
Well, I feel like it was kind of the opposite for me because when I felt like when I didn't really know what was going on and I was making mistakes, it's a lot easier to forgive yourself and be like, oh, it's just a game, like it's just for fun. But like now that we've been doing coaching for a while, I'm like, I should be better than this. Like it started really getting to me. But yeah, the ego boost from yesterday was actually really helpful, helping me move forward. So
definitely understandable. The pressure from coaching definitely it's normal. I think with every single client I've worked with, it's kind of like, oh, I'm taking it more seriously now. I should be getting more results. So I definitely understand. Yeah. But it's one of those things you can't rush sometimes.
You stopped 1 game away from Radiant?
Yeah, I was at 440 RR or something, and then I was like, I hit my game limit, like cap for the day. I'm like, I'm not gonna play again, so I'm gonna wait until tomorrow to get the rank up game. That's kind of what I meant in that last week. I just wasn't playing.
Yeah. What's your general cap for games?
Oh, during that grind period, I was playing, I think like 5 to 6 games in that block. But for most people, I recommend to play 3 to 5 in a sitting. Like 1 sitting, you play 3 to 5. Obviously, like, kind of go with leeway. Some people like to use the idea of like playing a best of 3. So like if you win 2, you stop. Or if you lose 2, you stop. Some people like to play a best of 5 in 1 sitting. So if you win 3 in a row, you stop playing, or whatever. You could, if you win the first 2 and lose the next 2, you could still play a 5th game. But I don't know. That some people like that framing. I kind of just went with the actual game count and not the BO3 or the BO5, but that could be one way to do it as well.
Yeah, we'll see. I should play 8 games a day.
Well, if you're gonna do all that, I'd probably separate it into 2 different settings, but you know, whatever works for you. I've definitely done the sit down and play 16 games a day in a row before, but
It just sounds really stressful.
it does. It is. All right. Well, hopefully.
Thank you so much for your time.
No, likewise, and hopefully it wasn't too overwhelming. But yeah.
That's what the VOD's for. I'll just rewatch it.
True. Alrighty. Well, we'll check back in next week, and good luck on the grind this week.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Of course. You take care.
Bye-bye.
Peace.